Hey everybody, we're here at Red Rocks Racing Sportsbook. He's Jason, I'm Chucky for the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, powered as usual by STN Sports. Now Jay, it's tourney time. I know that I'm not a big dancer, so I don't have my dancing slippers on. And I know a lot of teams, there's 16 left that do, but man, Cinderella did not make the dance this year. We waited, didn't have an opportunity to turn into a pumpkin because she just wasn't there. Kind of a different tourney this year that's been really, really chalky. Only 4 conferences represented in the Sweet 16. No mid-majors. Some really good games this weekend. But again, a little bit different than we've seen maybe if you go back about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, not even 3 or 4 years. Go back to 2007. So we're talking, that long ago since an 11 seed or higher didn't make the Sweet 16. So Arkansas, a 10 seed, our highest seed remaining in the Sweet 16. We had 16 straight years where an 11 seed or higher had made the Sweet 16. So no Cinderella, or if you want to say that the Arkansas Razorbacks are currently wearing Cinderella's slipper, I guess you could say that. But you brought it up about the 4 conferences that are remaining.
So would that make Coach Cal Prince Charming?
I guess he's that highest seed remaining,
yep.
And I don't think that you could say the team out of the SEC, let alone Arkansas, coached by Coach Cal, fits the Cinderella story. But 7 teams from the SEC make the Sweet 16 from the 14 that they had, make the big dance. 4 out of the Big 12 with Houston, Texas Tech, Arizona, BYU. 4 out of the Big 10 with Maryland, Michigan State, Michigan, and Purdue, and then 1 out of the ACC for Duke. So you talk about that mid-major and all those other conferences. To only have 4 conferences left, it's a changing of the landscape of college basketball. Not seeing these teams in the big dance, and so it's kind of lost some of that storyline of the David versus Goliath. We have a bunch of Goliaths versus Goliaths here in the Sweet 16. And we even have the SEC, where we have SEC teams
playing
matching up against other SEC teams in the Sweet 16. But again, really looking forward to it. Great time of year, opening day here for baseball. What a weekend this is going to be between March Madness, opening of baseball, let alone the NHL and NBA that's going on. What a great, fantastic weekend.
We'll definitely get batter up with baseball. But I think looking at the tournament and what you kind of mentioned, it's Goliath against Goliath. And, you had the UConn-Florida game where you had the 3 at the end of the game that affected the total in that game. And you had Maryland with Queen hit that kind of fadeaway bank shot to beat Colorado State. But you just didn't have those kind of buzzer-beater games. We saw a lot of the smaller schools were able to kind of hang for maybe 36, 37 minutes and just really couldn't get over the hump late in the game. And I think it's a little bit different than what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I know after that Thursday and Friday, it was basically considered a blowout tournament.
Yeah, right.
There was more games by 20 points or more than at any other time in the history of the NCAA tournament. So lots of blowouts, and lots of blowouts, not even just in like our 2 15 matchups, 1 16 matchups, blowouts just throughout the tournament, even the games where you had the tight seeds matching up where teams just didn't play well and didn't look good, and we had kind of those matchups. A lot of favorites come through in the tournament, not particularly when we talk about Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of the opening of the tournament. We did see those couple upsets. We did see teams cover, but it was mostly kind of in the early afternoon or morning games. When we got to the evening slate,
very chalky,
call it the Pacific Coast time zone, when we had the games that were in the 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock hours, both Thursday all the way through Sunday. The favorites did very, very well in the evening hours.
And you guys did very, very well in the evening hours.
So it was a lot of chalk late in the evening, no real upsets in the evening. So obviously as we turn to now the Sweet 16 with the 4 and 6 o'clock games, we turn those evening hours, and we've got Michigan State over Ole Miss as a 3.5 point favorite is our closest game. So we've got mostly games sitting in that 3.5 to a 9.5 with Duke, but a lot of 5 and 6.5 point favorites here as we go into these 8 Sweet 16 matchups.
So with that said, let's kind of break down the games on Thursday and Friday a little bit. We'll give you guys a little bit of insight, kind of where we've seen the line move, where it's going, where we think it might go, and just some betting tidbits that might help out. So you got Bama as a 5-point favorite against against BYU. Here's a 2 against the 6 seed. This game has the highest total of any of the Sweet 16 games at 175.5, and it's no wonder. Both these teams love to run. BYU last lost was in the in the Big 12 tourney against Houston. They've won 12 straight games. They're a senior-laden team. They've got a lot of veteran presence here. I think the key for Alabama is we know they can score, evident in this total. We know BYU can score, but can Alabama play D against a team that does like to run but is a little bit more patient and plays better D than they do?
Well, you talked about the total, and that's the key for me in this game. It's 175.5, and if you want to watch teams put on a three-point shooting display, this is the game for you. Talked about Bama, number one scoring team in the country at 90, almost 91 points a game. BYU, number 25 team in the country at 81
But they do like to run.
Yeah, but Alabama is the number 14 attempts. BYU, or Alabama, 983 three-point attempts this year. That's good for number 14 in the country. And BYU is the 21st attempts at 929. And they're both really good three-point shooting teams.
Right.
Bama at 35%, BYU at 37%. Obviously, Mark Sears is the superstar in this game, 18 points a game. Grant Nelson also for Alabama, and it's Richie Saunders for BYU.
Right.
But this game for me, it's up and down the floor. Alabama 29 three-pointers attempted a game. BYU 28 three-pointers a game. Who can hit their threes? Be ready for big swings in this game too. Two or three three-pointers in a row. You miss a couple in a row. You watch the other team come back. So don't be surprised if you see some monster swings back and forth in this game. But again, look at the props on this game from a three-point standpoint. A lot of stuff with the players, and obviously a very, very fun, exciting game with a high total and these teams going up and down the court.
Really like that a lot. And again, for me, I love Bama. I love what they do offensively, but I'm just not sold on them on the defensive side of the ball. And can BYU exploit that? And I think they can play a little bit better defense. Again, a very veteran team. Next game we're going to look at is Florida and Maryland. Maryland comes off that buzzer beater. Queen with that shot off the glass. Not sure he called off the glass, but off the glass against Colorado State. And you look at this game, and man, you look at Florida, and they got a scare out of UConn. I mean, we actually were adjusting the futures kind of on the fly because they were trailing the entire second half until about that 3 or 4 minute mark when they went on a little run. As I mentioned, that total kind of went over off a three right at the buzzer by Colorado or by UConn there. But this Florida team has been so good and so explosive. Do the Terps have enough to kind of stay with them? My guess is we're going to see a lot of Florida money later tonight.
Yeah, and Maryland is a really balanced team. You talked about Derek Queen, between Julian Reese. They have 5 guys that average over 10 points a game. So they've got a lot of different guys that they can go to. And they're also very, very big. They play they're not a big three-point shooting team. They like to drive the ball inside. Struggled against Colorado State. Colorado State had really good guard play, and Colorado State shot the ball well
and
from three-pointers.
And they led that almost entire game until they fell behind, then hit that three, only to get beat by Queen.
The big matchup here is that Florida is a guard-laden team between Walter Clayton and all their shooters. They shoot the three-pointers really, really well, which is something that can absolutely kill Maryland. But Maryland balances it by going back down inside where Florida doesn't have the talent of their team. They've got size, but the talent of their team is all in the guards, and they want to run the floor up and down. They want to play at a higher pace. Maryland might be better off making this more of a slow-paced game, a half-court game, and using their sides to their advantage. But again, look for Florida to try and push the pace in this game and use their guard play to outplay Maryland from that standpoint.
Next game on the docket is going to be Duke and Arizona. Can Caleb Love do enough with Arizona to keep them close? I mean, we look at Duke and being the biggest favorite on the board, and that they can play on both sides. They're getting a lot of love from the bettors in the future book, and on a game-by-game basis. Caleb Love knows Duke because he played at Carolina. So he has some experience playing Duke, but can he do enough to keep them in the game against a team that arguably might be the best team in the country?
Yeah, and you talk about Love. I mean, this is a monster game for him. The 3 years that he spent at Carolina, he decides to transfer from Carolina, now spent the last 2 years at Arizona. He's unquestionably the leader of that team. He's going to want the ball in his hands this whole game, whether he can put up his best performance. Make no mistake, this Duke team is the best team on paper in this tournament. They're a big favorite for a reason. Cooper Flagg continues to play at the highest level.
Yep.
Looks fantastic when the ball is in his hand. And they've got a lot of other pieces to the puzzle that are around him, making this team special, making them a big favorite. But this game's going to come down to Arizona not committing stupid turnovers. They get in these lackluster times.
They have to play a perfect game against Duke,
at any point in time when you're in the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8, you got to play your best basketball at this time of year. You got to shoot your best percentage. You got to have that guy that comes out of nowhere to have his best game, and that's what Arizona needs. All of this stuff put together, and they need to Duke to have one of those games where they don't play their best game. But Caleb Love's going to put a big effort. Arizona needs to find one of those other pieces of the puzzle to have a big game, and they've got to find a way to play a little bit of defense outside, more on the perimeter, and not allow Duke to just get these clean looks at threes, because that's what excels them. You have to back things down to stop their guys on the inside, and then Duke shoots over the top. Arizona's got to find a way to push that perimeter defense and then be able to back down and rebound at the same time.
Yeah, and they really can't go on one of those kind of dry spells where they don't score. They have to be in this game, I think, from start to finish. Last game on the docket for the Thursday slate, and that's Arkansas and Texas Tech. It's great seeing Coach Cal back in the Sweet 16 again. He's done a great job with Arkansas. I think for me, both these teams play in the same conference. They're familiar with each other. I'm sorry.
Texas Tech, Big 12.
Big 12, I meant, yeah. But, you got a Big 12 showdown against an SEC showdown. But I think it's, Coach Cal, can they really step up again? And they're 2-0, and I think most people were against them in 2 games. Can they do it a third time now and advance to the Elite Eight?
Yeah, and I think their performance throughout the SEC season and tournament left them kind of with this poor seed. Obviously, they've got a ton of talent there. They're very, very deep. They're going to play 8 or 9 guys. You go knock off St. John's, who obviously had a poor shooting performance in that game, but they beat Kansas, who preseason was the number one team in the country, and then you go knock off St. John's, who was arguably playing some really, really good basketball. So Arkansas, they're a 5.5-point dog here. I do expect that line to come down. I do think we're going to get Arkansas play between now and game time.
Arkansas and BYU are the 2 teams that we might see some dog play on tonight.
But JT Toppin's a special player for Texas Tech. He'll be the guy that they go to. He'll be the guy that looks to lead them through this process. But this could be one of those upset specials. And obviously, as we look for that Cinderella story, still cheering for that upset to happen. And Arkansas is kind of that Cinderella story right now.
Well, we always say we love, we need the underdogs. We need the dog. And I just saw somebody walk in with a dog, so maybe that's a good omen.
A good sign that we can get some dogs in the next 2 days.
So that's kind of Thursday's games. So let's take a look at Friday's games as well now. So you're looking at Friday's games, Ole Miss and Michigan State. I know that Ole Miss is a little close to you, which is I know your son goes there, and this is a great matchup, though. I mean, if any team can match maybe the physicality of Michigan State and the athleticism, I think it's Ole Miss. I think that they can match that with them, and they've got the size, guys that can run up and down the court. They're getting 4 points in this game. Ole Miss is a senior-laden team. They've got great balance offensively. They put up 91 points in their last game, so they can score. I think this is a really intriguing matchup with these 2 schools and kind of a little bit of a contrast in styles of play.
Yeah, again, this game
means a lot to you. I know.
My son currently attends Ole Miss. We also have a superstar, Jace Richardson. Went to Bishop Gorman here locally. Obviously, his dad played his ball at Michigan State. Jace is now at Michigan State, freshman at Michigan State, likely to be an NBA draft pick in this upcoming draft. Looking at this game, though, to me, is one of the bigger mismatches on the board. And Michigan State is a very slight favorite in this game because Ole Miss has played absolutely fantastic in their 2 tournament games, obviously blowing out Iowa State in the last matchup and beating North Carolina in their first matchup. However, if you're looking at Ole Miss, and again, I'm somewhat cheering for Ole Miss, they've overperformed in these 2 tournament games.
You have to remember, in Chris Beard's second year at Texas Tech, he took them to the Elite Eight.
Yep.
Now he's trying to do the same thing with Ole Miss.
They are a 34 on the season. They are a 34% 3-point shooting team. They shot 40%, 8 for 20 against UNC, and they shot 58% from 3-point land, 11 for 19 against Iowa State. And again, remember, they're a 34% on the season. So they've overperformed in these 2 games. And Michigan State on the season was a 46% shooting percentage team. Not from 3-point land. They're not a big 3-point shooting team, but they shot 46% on the season. They shot 44% against Bryant, again, under their season shooting percentage, and they still won the game by 25. They shot 44% against New Mexico, again, under their shooting percentage, and they beat that team by 8. So, in my mind, Ole Miss has overperformed in their 2 victories, and Michigan State has underperformed in their 2 victories. And if we see these teams right size and we see what we saw all year from Ole Miss and what we saw all year from Michigan State. This looks like a game where Michigan State should be able to win and potentially win by more than 3.5. Should Ole Miss fall back to that normal 3-point shooting percentage.
I love the coaching matchup, though, of Beard against Izzo in this one. I think it's really intriguing. And, again, Beard has had some success early in his career at different schools. So we'll see if he can get
I just think that Michigan State defense, when we talk about the defense that Ole Miss saw against UNC, which you can make a little bit of an argument that UNC doesn't play a whole lot of defense at all, and Iowa State, another good team out of the Big 12 with good defense, there's nothing you can do when a team is shooting 58% from three-point land. So I do expect Michigan State to collapse down on defense, and I do like Michigan State in this matchup.
Another game we're going to look at now for Friday is Tennessee, a 4.5-point favorite over Kentucky. There's only 1 seed difference between these two schools, as Tennessee's a 2 seed, Kentucky a 3 seed. Kentucky has had a lot of success, though, against Tennessee this year. They're 2-0, and maybe it's just a bad matchup for Tennessee. I know it's really tough in any sport. We talk about it all the time. Can a team beat a team 3 times in one season? Can Kentucky do that or not? But maybe stylistic-wise, they're not a good matchup for the Volunteers.
Yeah, really close matchup. Again, you talked about obviously both these teams from the SEC played each other January 28th at Tennessee. Kentucky won at Tennessee 78-73, and then February 11th in Kentucky, Kentucky won 75-64. Again, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into the numbers on this matchup. Obviously, an incredible matchup. Obviously, all those people from Kentucky, this is going to a true who's going to take things home here. But again, when we talk about overperforming and underperforming, Kentucky is a 37% three-point shooting team. And in both these games, the home game and the road game, 12 for 24, shot 50% from three-point land in Tennessee, and they were 12 from 24 and shot 50% from three-point land at Tennessee. So again, a 37% shooting team in Kentucky that shot 50% in both games against Tennessee. Tennessee, a 34% three-point shooting team, shot 17%, 3 for 18 against Kentucky the first time, and then listen to this one, 11 for 45 three-point attempts, and they shot 24%. So again,
that's why they've lost
and
twice.
On the season, a 34% shooting team, they shot 17% and 24%, and they were chasing that 45 shots because again, Kentucky was shooting 50%. So can Kentucky shoot 50% again to beat them a third time?
And can Tennessee shoot that poorly again?
Or does Tennessee have a little bit better shooting percentage here? So again, I know a lot of people are liking Kentucky in this matchup because they've won both games. You talk about that triple revenge factor and the fact that I believe Tennessee played 2 of their worst games on the season matched up against Kentucky. And again, you talked about is that a style approach? Right. Is that what Kentucky's doing? I think that Tennessee rebounds here, and I like Tennessee in this matchup.
Okay, so another game we're going to look at now, Auburn and Michigan. Auburn comes into this game a 9-point favorite. Again, one of the bigger favorites on the board. They were one of the most dominant teams in the country, I'd say, for about 75 to 80% of the college hoop season. Then toward the end of the season, they lost 3 out of 4 games before the tournament. It's a Michigan team that has played really well down the stretch. I kind of like the way they match up against Auburn a little bit. I think when you look at Auburn, it's a little bit Jekyll and Hyde. It's which side are you going to get in this game, which makes this matchup a little intriguing.
Yeah, it's the same. You don't know which. Auburn really kind of struggled down the stretch. A little bit banged up. Broom's a little bit banged up. But now they've rebounded. They played some good basketball. But the hottest team in the country is arguably this Michigan Wolverines team. Coming out of the Big Ten tournament, able to win that tournament, and then go play some really, really good basketball. I mean, they were a little bit of a tight matchup in that.
We're not
first
giving
matchup,
them a whole lot of respect, though, being a 9-point dog.
And I think that's a lot of respect for Auburn.
It is.
Obviously, that number. We talk about the SEC getting 14 teams in. They have 7 teams left. Auburn was the best team in the SEC throughout the regular season, and they've earned that respect, and now they're playing in the big dance when you want them to come back. But this is a game for me that is kind of tough, just because that 9-point spread, Michigan playing really good ball. Not a big opinion on this game. One of these, I think you're just going to look back and watch. Don't really see an upset here, but Auburn definitely is one of those teams that, they're not the high-scoring team, They're kind of in the middle of the road from a shooting percentage. They rely a lot on their defense. And again, anytime somebody can come out and shoot a high percentage of three-point shots, you have a chance of pulling that upset. And that's kind of where Michigan's been living the last week and a half, 2 weeks.
Yeah, so I agree. We'll just see what Auburn team shows. Now we're going to look at the last game Friday, and that's Purdue against Houston. And I love Houston. I mean, that was kind of my pick when we went through the brackets and just kind of had some fun. That was my pick to win it all. But when you look at the committee, I mean, they had Houston having to play if everything kind of fell in Gonzaga in the second round, and now they play Purdue in Indiana in the Sweet 16. That shouldn't happen. You shouldn't give a school kind of a home court advantage like that. But you look at Houston, only 4 losses this year, 3 of those losses in overtime. Number 2 in the country defensively. I know that they sometimes have some deficiencies offensively, but that's a Houston team that if they get up by 8, 10, 12 points, it is really hard for any school in the country to come back against them because of the way they play D. They are a big favorite here, but maybe a little bit of a chip on their shoulder the way the committee kind of put them in a bracket where they had to get by Gonzaga, who is so tournament tested, and then having to beat Purdue now in Indiana in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, and I'm enamored with Houston because I think they're playing. I always talk about playing with a chip on your shoulder.
For sure.
Obviously, they've kind of always been to this point where they're a good team. They get a decent seed and never been able to kind of finish it off. And now battling through the Big 12 season, and obviously the 4 Big 12 teams that are represented still here in the Sweet 16 proves that the Big 12 is a good basketball conference, and their conference play has kind of set them up to be on this stage. And I think that the embarrassment that they knocked off the Zags, I think that gave Houston a whole lot of confidence that they're exactly where they need to be. And remember, Purdue got one of the gifts of this tournament in McNeese.
Right.
Kind of was a Cinderella story in knocking off Clemson, and then Purdue got to play McNeese, who was maybe playing a little bit over their heads. So Purdue, despite the fact they're in the Sweet 16, they got kind of one of the gift paths to the Sweet 16, and I again, big spread, but Houston for me is one of the teams that I'm looking for that potentially could be taking this thing home when we talk about going to the Final Four. I think Houston's going to find themselves in that conversation.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Again, they're a team that I had winning it in my bracket. I just think the way they play defense and the way that they kind of stretch out the game, or really shorten the game, I should say, when they have the lead. They're just so good at that. It makes it really tough for any school to come back. So
suffocating defense
I like
up and down the court.
Suffocating, yep. So it's going to be a fun tourney. Really quick, too, last man standing contest, which we had a record amount of entries this year and a record payment. There are 191 entries left going into Sweet 16. So congratulations, you guys. Make sure you get your picks in tonight for the game you want to use before the first game you use. And, of course, if you win, these contest cards will be available at 7 a.m. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday this week as well, going into Final Four and then the championship the following week. So, again, good luck. 191 contestants left in last man standing.
Yeah, just from a basketball standpoint, on the app, make sure you get on. Lots of props, live wagering on all the games. If you don't have the app already, still have a $50 no-worry wager. Get in today and sign up for the app, and make sure you take advantage of that promo.
All right, we're gonna shift gears now from the hardwood to MLB, and as we touched on earlier, it's batter up. And I mean, are we even going to play this season, or is this just Dodgers win? Dodgers win. I mean, they go 2-0 against the Cubs in Japan, and but I think it's a really interesting season. I think you look at the National League and a lot of the moves that were made free agency wise. I think really kind of swayed things to the National League with Soto going to the Mets, Tucker going to the Cubs. I think the American League is much more wide open for me this year, and I think when you kind of look at it as a whole, is who are the teams outside of the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Padres, all the teams at the top. And in the National League, for me, it's the Diamondbacks. I know they play in the same division as the Dodgers, Jay, but I really like their pitching staff a lot. When you can have Corbin Burns going the 5th game of the season, tells you a lot about that pitching staff. And in the American League, I like the Red Sox. I love their pitching as well. I love their batting order from top to bottom, and I think they can win the American League East.
Yeah, I'm a big Red Sox kind of surprise team for me as well. The addition of Garrett Crochet, traded from the White Sox, Walker Buehler,
yep,
who was a year off of his Tommy John, kind of started to play a little bit better in the playoffs.
Bregman on the offensive side.
They add Bregman. You got 2 young guys, Rafaela, who was a budding star last year. They're going to bring up Christian Campbell to play second base. Red Sox have a real question mark is in their bullpen. bullpen.
Closer, right,
Chapman is going to be their closer.
At least to start the season.
Bring over Hendricks from the White Sox after losing Jensen. So they've got some questions in the bullpen, but the lineup's absolutely fantastic. And you got to ask yourself, the Yankees with no Cole. What are they going to do there?
Schmitz
Obviously, losing Soto.
Right.
Are the Yankees going to be down? We talk about the Orioles, and obviously that lineup's fantastic. But the Orioles, Eflin, Martin, Kramer, Seguno, and Povich is that starting rotation.
Right.
There's not a lot of fear being driven into your heart with any of their starting pitching. Toronto can't possibly be as bad as they were last year. Bichette can't have that bad of a season.
You wonder about the whole contract stuff with Guerrero, though. If they are struggling at the trade deadline, how does that loom over the Toronto team? If they're playing really well, I know they just signed Jansen and gave him a new contract, but what ultimately happens with Guerrero, I think, it kind of makes it a tough season for Toronto.
I think Toronto has a much better there than they had last year. You add Anthony Santander, again, a great professional hitter.
Yep.
I think Bichette, playing in a contract year, has a big year. They're going to lead him off. Guerrero, I think, is going to have to see what happens at the bottom of that lineup, who can perform 5 through 8, and if they can get some timely hits there and get some health. Maybe if Scherzer can give them some innings, I think he's a guy that can perform. But I think Boston, to your point, is a good team. I'm going to go to a team that I think they win the American League. And I'm going to go back to the 2023 world champion Texas Rangers. And I think that they won the world championship. They had that World Series hangover of 2024. They weren't healthy in 2024. We saw Seager banged up. We saw Adolis Garcia banged up. Their pitching staff was kind of banged up the whole year long. We'll get Jacob deGrom. I don't know how much we'll see of Jacob deGrom, how long he can last. They've got some young guys, Jack
really
Leiter coming
pitchers.
up. Kumar coming up. You add Jake Berger, who's a masher from the Marlins and the White Sox. We bring in Jock Peterson as that professional
Kumar
hitter.
And Jack Leiter, though, really, that's the key to that team, I think. If these two kids, with all the hype, can pitch the way, both can hit triple digits on the radar. If they can take that next step, and they've looked that way a little bit in the Cactus League so far, I think it changes the entire landscape for the Rangers, and I agree. I think they easily win that division.
You add these Josh Young, the big hitter, Wyatt Langford, Evan Carter. That lineup is just it's stacked top to bottom. And I think that, again, when we talk about the division, Houston has dominated that division. I don't know what the Astros have left, questioning their pitching staff. Obviously, we see Tucker and Bregman gone. Who are the Astros? And then you're really depending on the Mariners, the Angels, or the A's to overtake that division.
I do like the Mariners pitching, though.
Mariners got great pitching, but again, one of the worst strikeout lineups. The A's are in playing in Sacramento. Who are they going to be? Love the lineup. Again, question the pitching staff and how long can the Anaheim Angels, how long can Trout stay healthy? So for me, the Rangers are a team that, at the price that they're currently at, not only winning the West, but I think that they're the class of the American League. And I tell you what, the National League, I don't know why you would go anywhere other than the Los Angeles Dodgers, and I think that
I said that. Right?
I think you're senile to think that anybody's coming out of the National League other than the Dodgers. The lineup's filthy, the pitching staff is gross, the bullpen is gross, and I'm worried that we're looking at a team that wins 125 regular season games, and I'm crying on a nightly basis as the Dodgers cover the run line, and they cover the run line by 2.5.
So do the Dodgers win more, or do the White Sox lose more?
The Dodgers win more. I think that the White Sox are going to be in the 50 to 60 loss column, and I'm worried that we're going to see a record-setting pace for the Dodgers. Not only that, it's when they're playing at home and they don't get that ninth inning at bat, I think is actually going to be a favor for us, because when they go on the road and they get those full 9-inning at bats, I'm worried about the number of run lines and that they can cover. I think the Dodgers on the road on the run line are going to be a really nice bet for people, because you're going to get that cheaper price because they're on the road, but they're guaranteed that 9 at bats is a scary thing for me.
With baseball starting, though, if you don't have the app, you're doing yourself a disservice, because the prop menu for baseball on the app has just exploded.
Massively exploded. So if you would have gone on the app, at the beginning of last year or even the middle of last year, you would have saw about 35 to 40 props per game. And if you look at the app this morning, you've got about 255 props per game.
How many again?
Home run props,
255.
batter props, RBI props, doubles, singles, strikeouts, stolen bases. Your pitchers, you can bet their strikeouts, how many earned runs they're going to give up. I mean, it is absolutely unbelievable. It looks like the NBA menu where we talked about the NBA going from 35 to 45 props a game to now 350. Go to that baseball menu, and you got over 250 different ways to bet baseball. Get on the app. Go down to the same game props or the parlays. Scroll over on those tabs to innings, pitching props, hitting props. It's absolutely unbelievable
Crazy.
What the team has been able to put together from a prop menu. Get the app today. Check out the pro baseball props. If you are betting pro baseball and you are not on the STN Sports app to look at the props, you are doing yourself a disservice. We have got so many props,
basically
so many different ways to bet the game.
You have struck out looking if you do not get on the app. So check it out. We'd be remiss too if we didn't talk a little bit about the women's college basketball. Last year, so much attention with Caitlin Clark, of course. This year, you look at the big injury to Watkins and Southern Cal. I think they were they were 5-1 in the third choice. They're now up to like 25-1 with the injury there. But a lot of cool stuff to wager on for the women's basketball championship as well.
Yeah, and I mean, with Juju going out, USC was kind of in that third choice at about 5-1. They've jumped all the way to 25-1. Obviously, with losing her is devastating. And it's made UConn and South Carolina really a 1A and 1B as to who this going to win this thing. UConn's a slight favorite. Obviously, Paige Beckner's playing with a chip on her shoulder, and the way these two teams are playing, I think we're set for a big-time matchup of UConn and South Carolina. Obviously, I think Notre Dame and some of these other teams are going to have something to say about it. But again, you talked about it, the loss of Caitlin Clark, not getting that national exposure. But man, these women deserve your attention. These are some
great basketball,
some absolutely fantastic games when you turn them on, and some good things to watch on the women's side of the brackets.
I think you can hear it in both Jay and my voices. With the Sweet 16 and both the men's and women's tournament going on, you still got both the NBA and NHL, which are kind of winding down. You're not that far from the playoffs yet. The start of baseball season, which is exciting. And then pro football. I mean, the draft's not that far away. We're going to be coming up with a lot of draft props. I know we've been the leader in the industry, and we're going to be doing that in the next week or so. So look for those, too. And all of our sports books are on the app. It's going to be a lot of cool props as we get closer and closer to April 24th. So there's always a lot going on. Sweet 16 atmosphere in our books is going to be tremendous. But as Jay mentioned earlier, if you don't have the app, now's the time to get it. Yeah,
and my excitement exists not so much in the games, but again, of where we're going with STN Sports and the offerings that STN Sports has for you. We held some surveys and said, what were we missing from STN Sports? How do we get better? And it was all menu. Give us more props. And so when we look at things and we're saying we now have over 350 props in our NBA menu, and our Major League Baseball menu now have over 250 props.
Love it.
That's, like, for me, that's the big thing, is that you guys asked for it and we were able to deliver, and now we're able to give you these props. And so I feel so much pride in the work that the team is putting in to be able to say, hey, go check out the NBA menu. We've got 350 ways to bet that game. Go look at the Major League Baseball menu, and we got 250 ways for you to bet each one of these games. Hockey's got 330 props per hockey game. And so as we go through and we're looking to get this for our college basketball, we're looking to get this for NFL. So if you haven't downloaded that STN Sports app yet, because we didn't have these menus, well, now we have the menu. Get on there, check it out. Now's the time, and we're going to continue to push the envelope, being able to give you more and more on the STN Sports app to give you guys every which way that you can bet these games.
As Jay mentioned, you guys asked for it, and we delivered. So check out the app. It really does bring the sports book to you guys. So again, it's a Sweet 16 weekend. It's going to be fun. For Jason, I'm Chucky. For the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, powered as always by STN Sports. Good luck this weekend, and it's opening day for baseball, so batter up.